few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like a bag?
what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine.
Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Happy debate morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Igor Volsky of Think Progress sitting in for Bill Press on this Wednesday, October 28th. Yes, it's the day of the third GOP presidential debate. This one focusing on the economy. And maybe, just maybe if we're lucky, the lights will go out. The satellite truck will lose power. And for 15 or 20 glorious minutes, we'll all sit there in anticipation of what Ted Cruz could be saying now. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. By the way, if you want to be part of the program, please do join us.
Yeah.
Also, you could tweet us at BP Show. I'm at Igor Volsky. You're watching us on Free Speech TV, on TawkrTV, on YouTube, on DirecTV, on Dish TV, and on your local progressive radio station. We have a lot to get to.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff
Peter.
going on today.
A lot to cover, a lot of news, a lot to get ready for this morning. And I think the main goal really of today is to figure out exactly why Ben Carson, the brilliant neurosurgeon who was the first one to divide those twins and has been for a long time, particularly in the African American community, a real hero, why he's surging, why all of a sudden he's knocking Donald Trump off the #1 spot and having his moment in the sun. We're going to get into that. And we're also going to ask, and some of you have been tweeting me and wondering what's going on, because this story kind of, I think, came out during the weekend, and so we didn't have a lot of time to get into it. But this new accusation from the Hillary campaign that Bernie Sanders at the debate 2 weeks ago now was sexist or had a subconscious sexist moment when he accused Hillary of shouting about gun control and told her in their exchange there early on that you can't just shout about guns, nothing will happen. She said at a dinner on Saturday that when women speak, some people think it's shouting. And it's been interpreted as an attack on Bernie, a suggestion that Bernie is, in fact, somehow sexist or going after Hillary in this unfair way. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Let me introduce the team here before we move on. We have Peter Ogburn here in the studio.
Hi, Mr. Volsky.
Good morning.
Good morning
to you.
Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you for getting the lights on this morning, by the way.
Let me tell you something.
We averted a small little Fox situation of our own.
Some mornings you come in and the show just kind of takes care of itself. Some days you come in, you got to be Schneider. You got to take care of everything, all the housekeeping
Well,
junk.
you are masterful. I mean, the last thing I want to do is sit here and talk to myself.
That's what
do that enough already at home.
Yeah, right.
Jamie Benson running the board. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning. Where's my thanks? I jerry-rigged some audio this morning.
I was getting to it. I was going to say that
guys.
we're going to go. Listen, we're going to go back in time to hear the greatness of Ben Carson, thanks to you.
This is true. We're going to dissect the crazy.
Exactly.
You did a good job
yes.
today, Jamie.
Ray Rogers taking your calls. At 866-55. Yeah, everyone, let's just pause. Let's just all pause for a second and applaud Jamie Benson.
Good job, Jamie.
Who's already
good job, buddy.
4 minutes into the show, killing it this morning.
All I'm going to say
Tweet him at Jamie Benson. Express your gratitude. Call us. Thank him personally. He'll get on the phone with you.
All I'm going to say is I couldn't have done it without Cyprian Bolden.
There you go.
Yes, our videographer keeping us looking sharp. On TawkrTV, on Free Speech TV, Direct, and Dish. Yes,
you got it.
Got it all. Ray, did I say this? Ray Rogers is taking your calls. If you call...
Wait, why are you thinking her twice?
I think her twice?
Okay. Yeah, what's up with that?
Jamie, by the way, thanks again, Jamie.
Yeah, let's thank Jamie again.
Thank you again for the audio. Really, it's just really a great. By the way, let's start. Okay, let's start with the audio very quickly. I know you're very excited about this. Not only is this a big day, or yesterday was probably a big night for Republicans preparing for the debate, but it was also Game 1 in the World Series.
I gotta tell you, what a game.
What a game. Here's the final moments.
Here's the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a high fly ball right field. Should be deep enough. Granderson gets behind it. He makes the catch. Escobar tags. Escobar to the plate. He is safe. And the Royals take Game 1.
Yeah, take Game 1. I'm just glad the game ended so we could start our show, or else people would still be watching and we'd just still be here in the dark.
It ended after 1 a.m.
Yeah, crazy. Poor Jamie didn't get a chance to see it.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, you had to be up here early for the show, pulling all this audio for us.
Yeah, it was a late night.
All right, we'll get to all of that, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Okay, so here's the deal with this game. Because
Tell me.
It was a kooky, nutty, clown shoes, crazy game last night between the Royals and the New York Mets. Here's just a list of some of the nutty things that happened during the game. First of all, on the very first pitch of the game, right off the bat, Alcides Escobar hits a deep drive to left center field that bounced off of the Mets' glove. Cespedes was out there. It resulted in an in-the-park home run. It's the first inside the park home run, the first leadoff inside the park home run since 1903, and the first inside the park home run at all since 1929. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So that's the first inning, first pitch. In the fourth inning, the national Fox broadcast went out. It just went blank. Fox could not get the feed of the game up.
And Twitter went crazy.
Twitter went
absolutely
nuts.
crazy.
So it was such a big deal that they actually stopped the game while Fox got their stuff together.
Get your act together.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, at one point they brought in the international broadcasters, the Vasgersian and John Smoltz, to call the game, which was great, by the way, because it meant no Joe Buck. But then they finally found a way to get the evil that is Joe Buck back into the game. In the 6th inning, Royals came back from being down 3-1 to tie the game. Then we go into the bottom of the 9th. Trailing 4-3, Alex Gordon hits a solo home run off of the Mets. That made it a 4-4 game, so they go to extra innings. The 10th and 11th innings, John Neese pitched 2 scoreless innings. It was his 29th birthday, by the way. And in the 14th inning, Bartolo Colon, the pitcher for the Mets, loaded the bases with nobody out, and of course that resulted in the sacrifice fly that got the guy who started this all off, Escobar, scoring from third.
So, Peter, do you have a dog in this fight? Are you?
I actually don't. I think both of them deserve to be there, which makes me happy, right? Like, I think they were probably the 2 best teams all year. I would be happy to see either one, right? I probably would be a little bit happier to see the Royals win, just because the Mets laid it on the Nationals so bad this year. But look, the Mets, I mean, they deserve it. They had a hell of a season. So.
Well, I don't follow, what is this, baseball? I don't follow baseball.
Did you watch the game?
No, it's cricket.
I did not watch the game, but I'll say this. I grew up in the New Jersey, New York area. Had a lot of friends going through school who had Yankees and Mets hats and gears. And so, not that I had a side, but in this matchup, I think I'm going to go with the Mets.
Met fan is sort of a perennial loser, right? Like, no. I mean,
I'm already a loser. I just declared I'm already a loser.
They'll admit that. I mean, Met fans will admit that they.
So this is a big moment
time.
for them.
It's
then.
a huge moment for them. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Just don't be a Yankees fan. It's better to be a Mets fan.
Exactly.
Better to be a Mets fan?
Okay. And for God's sake, don't be a Red Sox. Broadway HD. I'm sure you probably haven't heard of this yet. Broadway HD. It aims to become the Netflix of Broadway. They're going to be offering high-definition broadcasts of top theatrical events that you can stream on your computer and on your phone. They say it's just like being at a Broadway show.
Do people want to watch a Broadway show on a device?
Well, here's the thing. First and foremost, musicals are stupid. Right, like musicals. So, like,
I've only seen one. I've only seen the Billy Joel musical, Moving Out, and I didn't really like it. I didn't really like it.
Of course, that is Billy Joel. He's the worst.
Oh, I forgot you hate Billy Joel.
Of course,
That's right.
I hate Billy
Okay.
Joel. Who's worse than Billy Joel?
I'm with Peter on this.
Yeah, Billy Joel.
Really?
Is
Who's worse than Billy Joel?
Is
Lots
terrible.
of other people
Can't
are
think of
worse
one.
than Billy. Really?
Can't think of one.
Really?
Can't think of one.
Ted Nugent comes close.
Sweaty Teddy
Joel.
comes close, but Sweaty Teddy rocks.
Unbelievable.
He actually rocks, despite the
Early
fact.
Billy Joel is quite good.
Boy.
It's quite good. We'll have a little music exchange during the commercial break.
Anyway, this was founded by 2 Broadway producers, and they say that they want to bring the Broadway experience to people who can't get to New York. It's called Broadway HD. We'll see how it works. I think it's an interesting idea. I'm not going to use it, but, go for it. And do you vape? Like vaporizers with the e-cigarettes?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so they're like these, the e-cigarettes. Right?
I know the
you vape,
e-cigarettes.
bro?
Yes.
Yeah, it's you vape, bro. The U.S. Department of Transportation has said that airline passengers are now being banned from packing their e-cigarettes and other battery-powered vaping implements. So you could get these e-cigarettes, right, which have like flavored tobacco-less water vapor that you smoke. And then there are also like empty vaporizers that I've heard some people use to smoke their marijuanas out of. And you can't take either one of those on the airplane.
Good. And you know what I want? I want those things to be better regulated. We don't know
agree.
what's in them. We
I
don't know what
agree.
kind of chemicals are in them, and who knows what kind. It's been kind of marketed as maybe a way to stop smoking, but we don't know if it's more harm than good yet.
That's true. But this is a big deal because a lot of people, you can't smoke on planes, right, anymore. And having these vape e-cigarettes, you can smoke in an airport with these things. You can do whatever you want because there's no smoke. So the Department of Transportation is like, nah, no more. You can't have them on a plane because they say that there's an issue with it could be a fire hazard.
Yeah, see, we need to be giving people less smoking options, not more smoking options. That's what I think. Thank you, Transportation Department. All right, 17 minutes after the hour, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557 7377. We want to find out, A, what you think about this latest Hillary-Bernie, I guess, tiff, maybe you'd call it. Because on the Bernie side, he's also, now he said in the very beginning of his campaign that, look, I'm not going to go negative. I'm going to focus on the issues. And it's been a very important part of his campaign that he doesn't do negative politics. He's never done negative politics throughout his entire career. But what's happening now? His pollsters are pulling attacks on Hillary. And he himself, on some recent interviews, has distinguished himself and distinguished his own record from Hillary in very stark terms. So the question is, as this race heats up and as Hillary, post-first debate performance and Benghazi hearing, has seen her numbers skyrocket. I mean, Peter, she's like up 40% in Iowa, which is way higher than anything she had in 2007 when she was leading Obama in that race early on. Does the Bernie campaign feel like they have to go somewhat negative to stop her? It's an important question, and one that could either help him, because why do people campaign negatively? Because it, in fact, makes a difference. Or, given the strong Bernie brand, it could hurt him. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Is he falling into the same trap as every other candidate? When they're down, they go nasty.
Yeah, he is. And it's an interesting battle that he's going to have to fight here with Hillary Clinton because, as Hillary reminded us several times during the debate, she would be the first woman president. She would be the first female president. And that's a powerful part of her story, and I get that. There was a moment in the debate that I noticed right when it happened, and that Hillary brought up this past weekend and threw it right back at Bernie, where she was talking about it was gun control, I believe.
Yeah, his record, contrasting her record and Bernie's record.
And he said, you can't just go around shouting about how you're going to change things. And she said, some people, when they accuse a woman of shouting, it's a bad look, right? Like at best, it's a bad look. And I honestly believe that Bernie Sanders didn't mean it in that way because he's sweet old Bernie.
And to be fair, he's been saying that for years.
And he has been saying that for years.
And he said it to O'Malley at the very
Exactly.
same debate, Martin O'Malley.
That being said,
it's read differently when it's directed towards a woman.
and it's not a bad thing for you to have to check yourself and have a
No,
woman
not at all.
and have a woman say, "Hey, dude,
It's about time, in fact.
yeah, like, hey man, you really shouldn't say that." There was a debate, or the debate that Hillary, when she was running for Senate in New York, when she was running against Rick Lazio.
Oh, Rick Lazio.
You remember this?
I remember.
And this debate where he had
Let
this
me
paper,
come on over.
and he just
Yeah.
walked over to her podium.
Oh, yeah.
And was
Sign
very
this.
aggressive.
Sign this. Yeah.
And it was very aggressive. And this you cannot do that to a woman who has established herself.
No.
The way that Hillary Clinton has. Again, I don't think Bernie was being sexist, but it's not a bad thing for a woman to say, you need to check yourself and not say stuff.
And
like
let's be very clear. It's not like these accusations of sexism or sexism itself that Hillary faces is in her head. If anything, during the Benghazi testimony last week, it was a prime example of the fact that women are treated very differently in these kinds of political circumstances where there's so few women in power than men are. The fact that she was asked multiple times, an aide gave you a note, do you want to have a sec to read it? Or, you're doing very well. Or, I hope you can understand me because I speak very slowly. I mean, we made a whole video.
Yeah. Mansplaining. It was a great video.
The Benghazi situation.
We played it here on the show.
Thank you. The Benghazi situation to Hillary. So, look, there is, they're all politicians, so there's certainly this understanding that Hillary brings this up in an effort to bolster her own political candidacy in some regard. But on the other hand, does Bernie Sanders now need to be more careful? If shouting is kind of brushed off when you use it against Martin O'Malley or some other male Republican, it's read and seen as entirely different when it's used against a woman, given the history, the very real history of how women have been treated by men in the political arena and are still treated to this very day. And if anything, this is a big opportunity for Bernie to say, you know what? I hear what Hillary's saying.
Yep.
That was certainly not my intention.
Yep.
But from now on, I'm not going to use shouting or any kinds of words that could be misinterpreted. And I don't think anyone else should either.
Like, I could say, and I stand by this, I think that when Ted Cruz speaks, it comes off as incredibly shrill.
Oh, you're not the only one.
But I wouldn't say that about a female candidate, right? Because that's a little sexist,
Yes.
I think. You can't call a woman shrill because she's speaking her mind.
Yeah, history matters here, folks. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Peter.
By the way, we're on Twitter at BP Show, Phil just chiming in says, Bernie has no choice. He's in a deep hole. If he wants to win, he can't unilaterally disarm, so it's time to break out the attack ads.
How far will he go? They're saying no attack ads. You talk to them to the Bernie campaign, and they say we're just going to distinguish ourselves. We're not going to run ads. But will they have to? 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. The Bill Press Show continues right after this.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This morning on the Bill Press Show, Wednesday, October 28th, it's debate day, which means we're going to break it all down for you, who to watch, what to watch for, as this crazy Carnival 2016 ride continues. Back after this.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in this city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earthalluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Igor Volsky here, Everything Progress, sitting in for Bill Press as we get ready for tonight's debate and talk about the accusations flying back and forth between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Hillary suggesting that Bernie's claim that she's shouting about gun control is in fact sexist. Craig from Arcadia, Florida joins us now. Good morning, Craig.
Hi, Igor. How are you?
Good.
I've always supported, I had a friend a long time ago who was gay, and he was afraid to even tell me. And then we had been best friends since the 70s,
Great.
right?
This is good.
Yeah, and when he told me he had AIDS, he said, do you guys not want me? And I said, no, Brian, we love you. We always have. We don't care if you're gay or you have AIDS.
What's your point on Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, Craig?
Well, no, the thing about Bernie, he should never put his political finger in the wind. That's all the Clintons have ever done.
All right, so you're saying that because Hillary feels like this will play well with her base, maybe with some of her women supporters, that she is trying to kind of gin this up and get her voters excited, angry at Bernie, and maybe peel away some of the Bernie voters.
That's one man's take.
That's one man's take, and we'll have to see if this continues, or if this is kind of a test balloon, a trial run, if you will, to see if this angers more Democrats, or if it, in fact, makes some difference for her. Although, frankly, looking at her numbers after the week she's had, I don't think she needs to do much of anything. All right, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Now, if you've been paying attention for the last 2-3 days, you'll know that there's a new leader in the Republican presidential race.
Yeah.
For 100 days, Donald Trump led in every single poll. And all of a sudden, this guy, Ben Carson, who's, well, let's say the polar opposite of the Donald. He's soft-spoken. He's seems like a more thoughtful and less bombastic character, is at top of the pack. And I wondered why. What has Ben Carson said in recent days that found so much favor with Republican voters? So I asked our great producer, Jamie Benson,
Thank you, Jamie,
at Jamie Benson, to look into this question, to pull some audio from the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, to help us understand what is it that he's saying that's really resonating with voters. And Jamie, being the great guy that he is, pulled this audio for us, put it all together.
Thank you, Jamie.
And now, because of Jamie's hard work, we can all go through it together. Let's start back in September. This is when Ben Carson really started to make headlines and really started to take away some of this momentum from Trump, and began starring in his own news stories. Here he is on Meet the Press explaining that people of a certain religion, well, they just don't deserve to be president.
I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that.
A couple of days later, he said, no, listen, I've been misunderstood. What I really mean is...
I said I would support anyone, regardless of their background, if in fact they embrace American values and our Constitution and are willing to place that above their beliefs.
In other words...
Read that as renounce your religion.
Yeah. In other words, they could be Muslim, but I doubt it. So no, that's Ben Carson in September, really laying out his views on religious freedom in America. We had in October a mass shooting at UCC, And reporters started asking Ben Carson, well, doctor, what do you think we should do to prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening again? It was the 46th school shooting in 2015. And here he is on The View on October 6th, laying out his view on how we can protect children in school.
You said that you'd be very comfortable if kindergarten teachers had guns in the classroom. Why do you think that's a good idea?
Not all kindergarten teachers. I said people who are trained and understand all the implications. And you obviously are not just going to have a weapon sitting on the kindergarten teacher's desk.
Obvious, clearly. That'd be craziness. I mean, it would at least be in a drawer, like a top drawer, maybe.
What
I
do I
mean,
sound
not,
like a
not on the
lunatic?
desk. I mean, that's insane. Like under a book, maybe. Ben Carson's full of great advice. Here he is talking yet again about guns and letting everyone know how we should prevent, how we should act if we're confronted with guns. Here he is on Fox and Friends. Here's what you need to do.
Not only would I probably not cooperate with them, I would not just stand there and let him shoot me. I would say, hey, guys, everybody attack him. He may shoot me, but he can't get us all.
Now, it's interesting advice to give. It's interesting advice to give,
Yeah,
but
that's the voice of a man you'd follow to certain death. Hey, guys, come on, let's go attack him. He can't get us all.
and it got me to thinking, has Ben Carson ever been in this kind of situation, right? Has he been confronted with a gun? How did he act? Did he throw himself at the shooter? Did he really take charge and protect the lives of everybody else?
Let's all go rush him at once right now. Let's go get him.
Well, thankfully, just 2 days later, actually, he's had a very busy October, he appeared on Urban View on Sirius XM and explained that when he was at the Popeyes organization, he was confronted with a gun, and here's how he reacted.
I have had a gun held on me when I was in a Popeyes organization.
Well, you eat Popeyes as a doctor? Was this before you were a doctor? Because I don't know. Full disclosure.
We have to die of something. Guy comes in, puts the gun in my ribs, and I just said, I believe that you want the guy behind the counter.
Mm-hmm.
So much messed up about that story. Not only is it calling it Popeye's organization, is it the greatest, but this is your leader. This is the man who's going to lead the country. This is the man who is going to speak for all Americans, and he goes, "Don't get me, shoot that guy."
You want him. You want him behind me.
Shoot that other guy.
Now, this guns thing. Here he is, after admitting, or really after talking about, go get the other guy, go shoot the other guy. He has some other ideas about how guns could have prevented one of the worst historical tragedies of all time. Here he is explaining that apparently it's not only kindergarten teachers who can help prevent mass shootings, and it's not only people acting as citizens and throwing themselves on shooters who can prevent mass shootings, but apparently it's also whole groups of people who are about to be exterminated. If only they had guns on their way to the gas chamber, they too could have avoided death.
I think the likelihood of Hitler being able to accomplish his goals would have been greatly diminished if the people had been armed.
Yeah, if the people, if the Jews had guns, then it all would have been hunky-dory. So we have, just for a quick review, we're not done yet, just for a quick review, Ben Carson is starting to pop with, I hate Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
Kindergarten teachers, but not all teachers, should have guns in the first drawer of their desks. Jews should have had guns and prevented the Holocaust. And if that wasn't enough, here he is bringing out the big guns. This was over the weekend, I believe, on Meet the Press, linking, as many conservative activists do, abortion to slavery.
Think about this. During slavery, and I know that's one of those words you're not supposed to say, but I'm saying it. During slavery, a lot of the slave owners thought that they had the right to do whatever they wanted to that slave. Anything that they chose to do. And, what if the abolitionist had said, I don't believe in slavery. I think it's wrong. But you guys do whatever you want to do. Where would we be?
See, I don't think I would have ever said, Jamie, by the way, thank you for pulling all of that. Those clips, I think, served all of us well. We now understand the rise of Ben Carson. But I never thought I'd say this. But I am surprised, Peter, that Donald Trump is losing to this guy.
I am too. I'm shocked.
Compared
Stunned.
to Trump, I mean, this is even crazier than anything Trump would say in many respects. At least when Trump says it or says similar things, you get the sense that he's trolling you.
Yeah.
That he's kind of kidding.
He's in on the joke.
That he's in on the joke, that he's a showman. But Ben Carson says all of these things. It's clear that he really believes them in some crazy way. And now, after he said them, he's number one in the Republican field for the presidency. I mean, how is that even possible?
It's amazing.
How is that? Who would have thought back in 2008 or 2012 that, A, those would have been the more sensible elections, and that we'd have a guy who's never held a political office, who's never served in government, who thinks that we can protect our kindergarten classrooms with guns, who doesn't think Muslims should be president, that he, saying that, would lead the whole pack. Unbelievable. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. I'm Igor Volsky. We'll be back with David Jackson of USA Today discussing the debate ahead and what Ben Carson needs to do to stay on top.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
I am your toilet. So how do you do? I take away your wee and the odd number 2. For a quiet moment, I'll always be there, bringing you troubles. You don't even have to care. Oh, think about the things you put me through. Things you put me through that have been through you. Stuff from your body I'll happily take. Liquid or solid, whatever you make. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. If I wasn't there anymore, you can only imagine disaster. I am a lifesaver, and that is not a lie. Where I don't exist, thousands die. So next time you have to do a poo or a wee, thank the sanitary saints that you have me. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. La 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 la. It's time to say thank you to your Lou.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us
all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
I don't know if I'll kiss babies. No guarantees. Igor Volsky, maybe Bill will. Here from Think Progress, filling in on this Wednesday, October 28th, 2015. It's debate night in America, and so we turn to David Jackson, White House correspondent for USA Today, out in Boulder, Colorado, getting ready for the CNBC economic debate. David, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for being with us so early out in Colorado. What are the expectations going into tonight? We saw in the last two debates it was all about Trump. Can Trump hold his own? How will he come off? Will they all attack Trump? Who here, though, needs to do well? Who are we supposed to watch? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think tonight's about Trump and Ben Carson, because we've seen Carson rise in the polls, and he's actually passed the Donald in a couple of polls in Iowa and a national poll as well. And there's definitely the sense out there that Carson's on the move and that Trump's a little bit stagnant now. So I think people will be looking for that dynamic, particularly to see if Trump attacks Carson to his face, and if so, how Carson may or may not respond.
Yeah,
I think the other 8 candidates will be vying for attention, basically.
Yeah, that's really, I think, the interesting part here is what will Carson do? Because the last two debates, I don't know about you, but I thought his performance was a little underwhelming. I mean, his entire style, Ben Carson's kind of low-key energy, to use a Trumpism, it doesn't really lend itself well to that kind of heated exchange with Trump.
I agree. He's one of the most low-key candidates I've ever seen for any kind of office, and he's said he's not going to respond to these attacks. So it's quite possible he'll ignore them and just kind of plow ahead. That's going to be one of the most interesting things to watch. It's liable to be a one-sided attack.
And, you know, the other concern, I think, is because this is a CNBC debate and the moderators are more focused and more knowledgeable about the economy, how will Ben Carson come across in terms of policy knowledge? I mean, you remember he stumbled through a series of questions earlier this month about the debt ceiling and said, I think just yesterday, that he would never raise the debt ceiling when he's president. That kind of thing, if challenged on the debate stage by some of these moderators, could, I think, maybe pose a problem for him.
I think that's absolutely right. I think there is some question as to whether he understands what the debt ceiling really is. You know, it's not agreeing to more debt spending. It's just basically agreeing to pay off the debt you've already racked up. So I'm not really sure he gets that distinction. So I'm sure that'll come up. His Medicare and Medicaid comments will come up as well. And that's really a lot of the questions about Carson. Of course, he was a doctor for a long time. He's been in politics for less than 2 years, arguably less than a year. So he really doesn't know a lot of the ins and outs of this stuff. And I'm sure he's going to be challenged, particularly by this panel. You raised a good point. I mean, CNBC really gets into the weeds on this financial stuff, so they're liable to have some pretty challenging questions for these guys.
And who else? Who are the establishment candidates? I mean, you constantly hear, you know, Chris Christie really needs to do a good job to get his fundraising up. And we've heard a lot about Jeb being in some trouble. Who has to have a good night tonight? I mean, for who is this really kind of critical outside of the two big frontrunners?
Jeb, I think. The cognoscenti feels like his campaign's a little bit of free fall. They've cut back on staff. They've cut a lot of spending, and they're anytime you do that, you're going to be attacked, and that's what's happening with Jeb. A lot of people are questioning whether he's in it for the long haul. So I really think he has to have a good night. And I think Rubio has to have a good night as well, because a lot of people look to him as a possible savior of the establishment, if you will. But he's got to prove he can win somewhere. So I think there will be a lot of eyes on the senator from Florida as well.
All right. Well, a big night tonight. David Jackson, White House correspondent for USA Today. Thank you so much for your time. Go strap in for the debate, and it's only 2 hours, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Thank you, Trump.
That's right.
You know, I said this is the closest Trump will come to making America great again. The 2-hour debate. It's tonight on CNBC. We'll be right back with more here on the Bill Press Show.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, dude.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like, it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street?
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging, yeah.
Right, exactly. And then, obviously, we're looking for training for anything else that we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is, we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 56 minutes after the hour, Igor Volsky sitting in for Bill Press, previewing what should be a fascinating GOP presidential debate on CNBC. They're going to focus on the economy, but I want to give you a bit of a preview for what you could expect from one Donald Trump, who, since his, slight dip in the polls, should we say, has been a little bitter. Here he is in Iowa yesterday talking about, it's not so good not being on top.
I mean, I am second. It's not like terrible, but I don't like being second. Second is terrible to me.
First loser, right? Second is terrible. It's the first loser. He also went on to say, my political advisors told me not to go into Iowa. They said it's too evangelical, even though I'm a good Christian, of course. But I did it anyway because I love Iowa. But here he says that, hey, Iowa, if you guys screw me, it's all over.
Now, until Iowa came along, I said every poll. And then Iowa, what the hell are you people doing to me?
The poor guy's bewildered.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't know what's going on. What happened? Well, clearly, as we found out from the segments Jamie pulled, what happened... Yeah, Jamie. Did I mention Jamie Benson pulled those segments?
Thank you, Jamie.
What happened is you found a guy in this race who was willing to out crazy Trump.
That's it.
That's it. There's nothing else in these last 2 weeks. There's been no great debate performance, no great stumble by Trump. You just found someone who's willing to say almost anything. They'll get press, and that's to the right of Trump. And that's what sticks. Yep. Apparently with this Republican base in some of these states, that's what matters. The fact that somebody could get even more to the crazy and more to the right of Trump is astonishing. And the question is, who's going to outright Ben Carson?
That's it.
Who's going to be the next
Someone's
one?
Someone's going to have to do it.
All right, we're back in a minute with Samantha Page, climate reporter for Think Progress, talking about some serious climate policy. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
That's right. We are everywhere and nowhere, but mostly everywhere. I mean, it was close to being nowhere when we came in. I let you know, I came in this morning and was told there's no power. We can't broadcast, there's no power. And I thought, all right, maybe I could go home, take a nap, wake up,
you thought you could take
and go
a nap.
back
That's
and go back
adorable.
to my job at Think Progress. But then, Peter, you did something, and everything's back on. Everything's working again. So now we're everywhere.
Look, I'm a
We're going to have to go through this again.
I'm a producer. I produce. Right? We need to get the show on the air. I made it happen. With the help of Jamie Benson.
Well, I've
Thank
been
you, Jamie.
saying this whole last hour that Jamie did all this work, but now I understand it's really all you
Here's the
who
deal.
keeps us powered up.
That's fair. I think that's a fair statement. Here's the thing, though. We have Comcast, and Comcast is literally the devil.
Yeah, do we have a boo button sound there, Jamie? You can play like a boo a sound effect. Not
Just
ready.
look
He's
for
not
boo.
ready.
Just
He's
look
not
for boo,
ready.
Jamie.
Look
It's
at
not
this.
that hard. Go ahead. You can pull one up. You know how to spell boo.
How long
don't
has he
you?
been working here?
I mean, good grief. Anyway, the point here is Comcast is the worst. And some things got screwed up, so I had to call Comcast. I was on the phone with them for like 40 minutes today. but we're good.
At like 5 a.m., at like 4:30.
Only the best and brightest working that Comcast customer service line at that time of day.
Hey, but it only
I
took
gotta
half
tell
an
you.
hour. That's kind of impressive.
It took a little more than that, but it was pretty bad.
Well, we're glad you figured it out.
We got it worked out, man.
866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. If you want to be part of the program, you're watching us on Free Speech TV, on TawkrTV, on DirecTV, on Dish TV, and on your local progressive radio station. We also have some great apps. You can catch us on the iHeartRadio app and the other app, Peter, that I don't have listed here, but there is another app. Yes,
The TuneIn,
the
and then there's
TuneIn,
the
the TuneIn app, and the iHeart app. And we're joined, of course, by our wonderful Bill Press team, Peter Ogburn, who saved our show here this morning, Jamie Benson, who pulled all of that wonderful Ben Carson sound you got to hear last hour,
Yes,
Ray
sir.
Rogers taking your calls, and Cyprian Bolding. He runs our video cameras here so you can see us bright and early on this Wednesday, October 28th, 2015. And joining me in studio is a colleague of mine over at Think Progress, Samantha Page. She's a climate reporter for our wonderful website. Good morning and welcome. Your first time here.
Thank you.
I hope we
yeah.
haven't scared you off too badly.
At least there's power, right?
Yes,
That's it.
exactly.
She may never come back.
She
We've set
may
the standard
never.
so high.
The bar's very...
Like,
just
next time you come back, we may not have power.
bring
Just
a
so you know.
flashlight or
Yeah.
a candle, whichever. We're going to talk with Samantha about the Republican effort to undermine the Clean Power Act. They're probably not going to discuss it at the debate tonight, or if they will, in these very general terms, but it's a real push to try and undermine what some have called President Obama's biggest effort to try and hold at bay the consequences of climate change. We'll get to that, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Okay, so Halloween is this weekend.
I know.
Yeah, you're very excited. Yeah, you're very excited. In Washington, Tacoma, Washington, a guy got a little too in the spirit of Halloween. What he did is he's driving along in the HOV lane, right? And a police officer sees him and he pulls him over because he thought that the person in the passenger side looked a little goofy. Looked a little weird. Turns out it was a fake skeleton that he had as a Halloween decoration that he put in the passenger side of his car and had dressed it up.
At least he dressed it up.
Yeah,
At
I mean, to be
least,
fair,
yeah.
he put a little bit of effort into this. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. You have to have an actual living, breathing human in the car to count it as an HOV lane. So he was given a $136 ticket.
It's an expensive skeleton.
Just for a little holiday spirit, I guess. You know, can't do it. Can't do it. We go to Brookhaven, Georgia. You been to a Waffle House, Igor?
No.
I figured you hadn't
No,
been
Russians
to a Waffle
don't
House.
eat
I figured you
fresh
hadn't been to a Waffle
waffles.
House. Sven, you've been to a Waffle House, I'm sure you have.
I have never been.
Come on.
Wow.
Jamie?
I'm really disappointed to say this. I have never been to a Waffle
Guys,
House.
what's happening here?
It's something
Has
I want
anybody
to
been to
go
a Waffle House besides me? Oh, man.
It's a
All right.
bad moment
It's a
for
southern
you.
thing. It's a southern thing, right? I grew up in South Carolina. We have Waffle Houses. But it's big in Georgia. In fact, Brookhaven, Georgia, is where a man by the name of Mitchell Harris Feinberg walked in to a Waffle House. He ordered his huge, which is the biscuits and gravy. He sat down, biscuits and gravy. And then he got the bill, and the biscuits and gravy, the price had gone up. Normally they're $1. Pause. $1 for biscuits and gravy.
That doesn't sound safe.
It doesn't sound like a safe dish of biscuits and gravy, but they raised it from $1 to $1.50. He got so mad, he stormed out of the restaurant and he kicked the door and shattered the glass. So the police showed up and arrested him. His excuse, by the way, not a bad one. He says he didn't want to put his greasy hands on the doorknob.
He's so considerate.
So he was just trying to kick it open.
That's a great customer.
And spare everybody else from getting the grease on them. So unfortunately, he went to jail for breaking it. And how about Apple? Yesterday they released their numbers, their sale numbers. They're the best year ever. They generated almost $250 billion in earnings. For the fourth quarter alone, they pulled in $51.5 billion in revenue. Last year, it was $42.1, so almost $10 billion more. So that's
probably like the economy of a small country somewhere.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. Profit was $11.1 billion, which was up over $8.5 billion a year ago. And again, that puts their annual revenue at up 28% at $234 billion. Again, that is nearly $250 billion.
You're
Well,
welcome. You're welcome, Apple.
Yeah, well, I was
Bought a
just
new
going to say,
iPhone
I'm partly responsible. I
quarter
switched
four.
back to Apple.
How long did
recently.
you survive off of the Apple
I had about
phone?
a year and a half.
Wasn't
on
it full year and a half?
year and a half on my Samsung.
He had his iPhone, and then he went to Samsung and swore it was the greatest move he'd ever
I
made.
thought it was.
It was so
I briefly thought
great.
it was.
And the next thing you know, quietly, sheepishly almost, almost sheepishly, he shows back up with his iPhone. And just,
It is terribly embarrassing.
oh, well, I'm not going to make
It
fun of
is.
you. I'm just pointing
It
it
is.
out.
I'm a much happier person now.
That's what I thought. Oh, my God.
That's all you got. 13 minutes after the hour. Glad we got all of that out of the way. We can focus now on something I feel has really, as we've gotten into the presidential race and we focused on personalities and who said what, has kind of flown under the radar, which is the Republican effort to undermine the Clean Power Plan. Let's first go through and kind of lay out what exactly that is, because some environmentalists and activists have said that if you look at Obama's climate legacy and you were to point to one thing that's really going to make a big difference in terms of what he's able to accomplish, because Congress isn't doing anything, what he's able to do on his own, the Clean Power Plan is really it. And it's probably part of the reason why it's been a target for so many Republicans. What does it do, Samantha Page?
Absolutely. Well, the Clean Power Plan is it's done under the Clean Air Act, which is, what allows us to have less smog in places like Los Angeles, things like that. The Clean Power Plan looks at mostly at electricity production at things like coal plants, where we get our electricity from. That accounts for about 30% of the carbon that the U.S. emits.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So you think about burning fossil fuels, you might think about driving. People don't as much think about turning the lights on. And that's a huge component of this. So what the Obama administration is really trying to do here is, since they did not get cap and trade through Congress, which would be another way to limit carbon emissions, they really looked at the Clean Air Act and what they could do within the administration to push down carbon. And they have introduced this this rule. It was finalized on Friday, actually, put into the Federal Register. And that has opened the door for Congress and a number of states to start fighting back against this. So go ahead.
No, and to be clear, so states under these regulations will be able to produce and put together a plan for how they're going to limit the emission of carbon from these plants. Is that right? Every state works within its own government to set a certain process for how they're going to meet the goals that the administration lays out.
Absolutely. And this is, the EPA's really been lauded for giving states a lot of leeway here. There are a lot of different techniques that the states can do to limit carbon. They can bolster renewable energies. They can set up, interstate cap and trade systems like New England already has, which is working very well and has boosted their economy and reduced their emissions, reduced their electricity costs even. So it really gives states an opportunity to put together this plan. That said, if states do not put together a plan, the EPA will give one to them. So states have a couple years here. I mean, they should start working on their plans. They're going to submit something next fall. The EPA will review it. There will be another year goes by where there's a lot of dialogue here. I mean, this is not some draconian thing where it's like, shut all of your coal plants down by the 1st of January.
And we reported that Christy Todd Whitman, who was the EPA chief under President George W. Bush, former New Jersey governor, a moderate Republican, called these regulations some of the most flexible that she's seen in terms of giving states this kind of latitude, because I guess the argument is that every state has its own economy, has its own needs, and so the people of that state should figure out how best to meet these targets.
Has its own energy mix.
Yes.
I mean, different places have more wind that they could use, have different offshore. They can get together with different states. I mean, California has its own sort of cap and trade thing going on, but other Western states might be able to join in on that. So this gives a lot of design flexibility to the states themselves.
Now, I think there's one Republican in the Senate, Kelly Ayotte, the New Hampshire senator, who's going to be in a tough race to win re-election. She's endorsed these regulations, right? Because New Hampshire businesses and New Hampshire itself and New Hampshireites pride themselves on their environment, on the beauty of New Hampshire. And so she was being attacked for I guess, not having a position, and her record on environmental issues, which hasn't been stellar. So over the weekend, she came out and said, I support this.
Yeah,
because New Hampshire
huge.
businesses
She's
love it.
The first Republican senator to come out and support it. And frankly, early polls have been showing that Republican voters for the primary in New Hampshire support the Clean Power Plan by about half. So, there's a lot of opposition in Congress, particularly from people who are supported with campaign funds from coal interests.
Coincidence or connection, we will never know.
Who knows?
But amongst actual voters, there's a lot of support here for doing something about climate change.
But as soon as this came out, you had 24 states file a lawsuit against the administration, which was very reminiscent of Obamacare. As soon as that passed, you had 26 states sue the administration, saying this was unconstitutional. Here the states are saying that the Clean Air Act, under whose purview the administration is acting here, doesn't permit, I guess, these kinds of actions. Sure. But they're not alone. Republicans in Congress are also leading the charge in two interesting ways. What are they doing to try to undermine some of these regulations, which we should mention they claim would undermine jobs in the energy sectors in these states and would hurt the local economies?
Right. So Congress, of course, got out ahead on this, and there's actually a House bill as well as Senate companion bills towards the Congressional Review Act, implementing the Congressional Review Act on this. Basically, the Congressional Review Act gives Congress the authority to look at something the presidential administration has done and say, we don't want this. The thing about that is there's no way that they're going to get that past a presidential veto. I mean, this is a lot of noise, I think, basically, but it's definitely, garnering some attention. The other aspect, the other way that Congress is addressing this is not garnering nearly as much attention, probably because it was in the Judiciary Committee yesterday, the well-known and much-touted Judiciary Committee.
And by the way, you wrote about this on Think Progress under this bill might be the most creative attempt yet to kill the Clean Power Plan, the Judiciary Committee.
So, points for them, at least, for getting creative with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not a way that I ever would have predicted that Congress would go about this, but this really gets into some wonky territory here. One of the issues that will be decided in court is that there's this one section of the Clean Air Act, 111D, which proponents of the Clean Power Plan say gives the EPA the authority to regulate carbon emissions from power plants. However, other emissions, other pollutants from power plants are already being regulated, like mercury. They're very different things, obviously. Carbon contributing to global warming, mercury getting into fish and causing deformities. I know. So bear with me here.
Hold on, Samantha. Let me just jump in here because we do have to take a quick break. But on the other side of that break, I want to hear exactly what they're doing because I like creative, wonky ways of trying to undermine policy. Samantha Page, climate reporter for Think Progress. She's going to stick with us here on the Bill Press Show. We'll be back to hear more about the GOP attempt to undermine the Clean Power Act. Stay with us.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Helpful spelling of TawkrTV there. TAWKR. That's how you spell Talker, by the way. YouTube.com/TawkrTV if you want to see us, watch us. Of course, you're listening to us, and we thank you for it. 27 minutes after the hour as we continue with Samantha Page, climate reporter for Think Progress. We're discussing, of course, the GOP effort to undermine the Clean Power Plan. They're using the Congressional Review Act to go after the regulations. They have this new bill to try to restructure the Clean Air Act to kind of limit how these regs can go through. But also, it looks like the biggest, I guess, date on the calendar here is later in this year, in December, during the Paris talks, where the administration has really tried its best to bring all of these countries to the table and come up with a real effort to get a hold of this climate problem. What are kind of the expectations going into this from the United States?
So from the United States, we have already submitted our what's called our INDCs, and those are our commitments to the Paris talks, the Paris negotiations. You know, one of the great things that Obama has done has really brought other countries to the table.
He's led on this issue, and this has brought
absolutely
China, some of the other ones.
China instituting cap and trade.
Samantha Page, climate reporter for Think Progress. Never enough time for climate, but please do come back. I'm Igor Volsky. We're going to come back right after this.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, the Bill Press Show for this Wednesday, October 28th, 2015. I'm Igor Volsky of Think Progress, filling in for Bill Press, and joined now in studio by Representative Dan Kildee from the great state of Michigan, the 5th district there, which I still haven't visited, by the way. I haven't been invited. I don't know.
Consider this a
open
formal,
invitation. Formal
invitation.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll have to go because I was in a former colleagues of yours district once several years ago, and it was cold and rainy. And I said to myself, I'm probably not going to come back, and I haven't. So we'll have to pick a good weather day, Congressman. It has
we
to be
better sunny. plan fast.
Yeah.
You should come to Flint, my hometown.
Yes.
Because Flint is a case study of one of those older cities that have been neglected by the federal government and the state government to the extent, and this is almost unbelievable, that right now in Flint, Michigan, the water system can't guarantee safe water to its residents. Elevated lead levels have forced people to drink bottled water in the city of Flint, Michigan.
In America.
In the 21st century, in the wealthiest country on earth. And these, mostly poor, mostly minority people, because of a decision made by the Republican governor to start using the Flint River as the primary water source.
Oh, no.
Which back home would be considered kind of a punchline to a joke. Had to change course, but the problem is you got long-term impact. So this is a whole question about older cities and what's happening to them and how they've been neglected. But if you wanted to see that up close and personal, a case study of what's happening in these older cities across the country, Flint, Michigan's ground zero, especially right now.
Well, I'll have to come and visit with our camera crew, and maybe we'll make a Think Progress video about this very issue.
That's a good idea.
But you also had a big day yesterday in the House where there was some movement on the Export-Import Bank.
Right.
Which is a favorite talker around here.
Yeah, it's the buzz everywhere.
Yes. can't stop. Everywhere you go, it's the people asking you.
I was at a bar last night trying to watch the World Series, and all I kept hearing, flip it over to C-SPAN, and people are just interrupting
Let me
with
see the
XM
latest.
talk.
I was in the barbershop, XM. So I said, can't we just get back to Obamacare?
Right.
No, let's not. Too many years of that. So let's break it down, Congressman. This bank helps support American exports.
Right.
That's the argument. How does it do that?
So it supports American exports, which means it supports American jobs by financing receivables for companies in the United States that sell into other markets. Often, the reason companies are reluctant to do that is that there's a lot of uncertainty in selling into another society, another government, where the legal system, the intellectual property protections, but especially dispute resolution mechanisms might not be that easy to navigate. Somebody owes you money in some developing nation, it's really tough, especially for a small business, to go through what it takes to recover any losses or to deal with disputes. The Export-Import Bank has strong infrastructure across the globe to pursue those sorts of disputes on behalf of American manufacturers. And so it's willing to either directly loan against those receivables that a small manufacturer or sometimes large manufacturers might use, or provide loan guarantees to banks. And it just takes the uncertainty out of global trade. And it's one of those things where as long as it's there, and it's been there 81 years, nobody ever knew about it. And it was just great. Suddenly, because Jeb Hensarling, for example, the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee from Texas, and a handful of others decided that this was somehow an intrusion into the functionality of the free marketplace, sort of an Ayn Rand concept, that we need to just stop it. Meanwhile, every other industrialized nation in the world helps finance exports.
In a much bigger way.
In a much bigger way
as well.
China, for example, does 10 times the amount of export financing in a year than EXIM has done ever.
Well, their argument is that most of the financing from this bank goes to large corporations, particularly Boeing, which they argue has received the largest chunk of financing. And that has led some Republicans and even some progressives, like Robert Reich, for instance, the former labor secretary under President Clinton, to argue that this is crony capitalism. Why are American taxpayers subsidizing these big companies?
So, and I understand some of the criticism, and I have been one that has argued that a larger percentage of EXIM's portfolio should be focused on small and medium-sized businesses. But because of that flaw that has to be addressed, my view is that we ought not unilaterally disarm, because what I'm concerned about isn't so much Boeing, even though I think it does make sense when you think about Boeing. Boeing is not Boeing. They don't manufacture aircraft, they assemble aircraft. When we talk about Boeing and its supply chain, that's jobs all across America. So I kind of get it, and I do think there are ways that we can tailor the tools that EXIM has to make sure that it's really supporting locally based manufacturers who otherwise would not be able to compete. But when I think about EXIM, I think about the small manufacturers in Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, Michigan, that see opportunity to expand their businesses through global trade and don't have the tolerance for the risk associated with making that sort of transaction. Those are the folks who I want to help. And it's the people who work in those factories who have never heard of the Export-Import Bank, who have no idea even how their company perhaps finances any of its operations, that would suddenly one day walk in and see a pink slip instead of a paycheck and have to have it explained to them, we just can't afford to try to compete with the uncertainty in global trade without some guarantee about over our receivables. And that sounds very sort of business inside baseball, but it's jobs in America.
So it's about 160,000 jobs is the estimate. What have we seen since the charter expired in June? Have there been these pink slips that have been given out?
There have been. I mean, there's at least one case of a large manufacturer that cut 500 jobs, and I know that's not much. The problem with all of this is that many of the opponents said, look, EXIM Bank has been shut down. There's no economic catastrophe taking place. But that's kind of a specious argument. It takes years or a long, long time for the deals that the Export-Import Bank initiates to even come to fruition. Just like any bank, you don't loan the money one day and the building is built the next day. It takes time. And so the idea that no more deals being initiated by the Export-Import Bank would have an immediate effect, is a rhetorical argument that has no legs. It's over time. It's a sort of a death of 1,000 cuts that we will experience if we don't get this thing back online.
Now, in terms of reforming the bank, which you've suggested maybe restructuring it in some way to ensure that a lot more of the financing at least goes to smaller businesses. Is that part of this effort, or are you saying let's extend the charter and then maybe we'll revisit some kind of reform?
There are some reforms, although my view is this. I was one of the Democrats arguing for a more robust set of reforms. It is true, though, that about 90% of the loans and loan guarantees that the Export-Import Bank issues are for small companies. The portfolio, though, because
the amount
is a different calculation. I think there were ways to deal with the portfolio of the bank's loans over time to decrease the exposure within a single sector, wide-body jets, or a single company, Boeing. But that's a structural argument. The argument that we had in the House of Representatives was this sort of philosophical or conceptual argument. Should we even have an export financing vehicle, or should we just let the market, in the invisible hand of the market,
Well, and they're saying
deal
let's
with
let
all this?
the private sector figure it out on their own.
Right.
Let's just outsource this to them.
What could
This doesn't have to
possibly
be
go
a
wrong?
government function.
Yeah. Well, I found it so interesting because it wasn't until yesterday's debate on the floor of the House when this unusual tool of a discharge petition, which has only been used
Only used once before, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is almost never done. The last time it was attempted was in 1992, and even then, the Congress just said, okay, forget it. We'll just take up this legislation. We actually used the discharge petition, which is a way for a majority of Congress to overcome the unwillingness of a committee chair or of the leadership to move legislation. So we finally get this bill to the floor, and all of a sudden, members who have been in opposition to the Export-Import Bank said, why can't we offer amendments? We would like to make some improvements.
And these are the same members, I'm sure, who talk about regular order, right?
We haven't seen regular order in this place in a long time. And they were complaining that why aren't we using the committee process? I'm a member of the Financial Services Committee. I have sat on that committee now for almost 3 years. And it is 100% clear to every member of that committee, Republican or Democrat, that Jeb Hensarling had absolutely no intention of ever bringing up the Export-Import Bank. And yet he was upset because I wanted to offer an amendment. Well, you know what? I swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States, not to the Committee on Financial Services or its chairman.
Jeb, yeah.
Right.
All right, Representative Dan Kildee from Michigan. By the way, he's on Twitter at Rep. Dan Kildee. Always a good follow. We'll be back with him right after this. Stay with us.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
And online. This is The Bill Press Show.
48 minutes after the hour, we continue with Representative Dan Kildee from the 5th District in Michigan talking about congressional action. It, from time to time, actually happens.
It occasionally occurs.
They moved on the Export-Import Bank last night, and they are putting together and going to bring to a vote a new budget deal that will give us 2 more years of hostage-free, crisis-free spending, which for a lot of people, hey, finally, we can kind of sail through these 2 years of the remainder of the president's term and not have to worry. What's going to happen to the debt ceiling? Will
Right.
the government shut down? It was a deal a lot of people are upset about, particularly on the right side of the aisle, who think it was done in secret, who think that Boehner, on his way out the door, sold them down the river.
Why would they think that?
Why would they think that? Beverly from St. David, Illinois, has a question for the congressman about the budget deal. Beverly, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. How you doing?
Good.
Congressman, always have admired you. You're very articulate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope I can do that in response to your
we'll
question.
see how this goes.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Hi, Peter.
Hello, my darling. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for calling. What's your question?
The question is this. I'm a senior citizen. I am a widow. I am 62 years old. I make less than $10,000 a year. There are what's been said on television that they're cutting Medicare and Social Security. Can you please explain why Democrats would vote for this?
Well, it's a good question, and actually a lot of the detail is still emerging. We just got the deal last night. It is not a substantial reform of Social Security and Medicare, even though some would like to say it is, especially on the right, in order to justify going along with the deal, because they have insisted on massive reform of the so-called entitlements. But from what I've seen so far, there are implications for, well, it would extend a 2% cut in Medicare reimbursements.
So these are cuts to providers, on the provider side of the program.
It would change the way reimbursements go to health system-owned medical practices. You know, over time, what we've seen is hospitals, large health systems, have essentially purchased what were independent medical practices, doctors or doctor groups functioning outside the hospital system. They've purchased those. And what this would do would be to say that we're no longer going to reimburse those doctors as if they were as if they were hospital outpatient providers. We're going back to reimbursing them the way they were reimbursed before they were acquired by our health system, as if they are independent physicians. There's also some tweaks that deal with high-income earners, Social Security, Medicare income earners that might have somehow married couples been able to sort of game the system by one of them delaying eligibility and receiving Social Security benefits until later, and then increasing. So we're going to take a look at all the detail. This is actually one of the things that this morning is really dedicated to in my office. I'm generally supportive. I think in all likelihood I'll support the deal because what we get is significantly more spending authority on the domestic agenda, which is really important. But these details do matter, and we're going to have to pore through them.
Yeah, and a lot of folks were concerned about the coming Medicare premium hikes for some seniors
which
as well.
This deals with. And I think that's one of the things to make sure that folks think about is that, there might be some things when you look at, well, I don't really particularly like this, but what it pays for is to cover the potential increase, substantial increase in Medicare Part B, which we'd hate to see, and also extends the life of Social Security disability, which was
a big
about
problem.
to crash.
Yes.
So for an individual to evaluate the impact, they have to look at the entirety of the impact on their own situation, not just one aspect of it.
Well, I think, Peter, that Representative Kildee lived up to his name as the most articulate member of Congress.
That was
I
pretty
think that
darn
was a
articulate, I gotta
pretty
say.
great answer there.
Coffee helped.
Well, Peter can brew a strong cup, as we've learned
That's
time
it.
and
I'm
time
telling
again.
you. I didn't make this one though, because if I had peeled this, or if I made this one, we'd had to peel you off the ceiling after you had a couple of cups.
Screaming Medicare, Medicare.
So Bill drinks out of your pot of coffee.
That's it. Yeah, that's always his problem. That's his excuse.
Representative Dan Kildee. He's the congressman from Michigan's 5th District, and he's on Twitter at Rep. Dan Kildee. Follow him there. We'll be back in a second here on the Bill Press Show.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
56 minutes after the hour, the Bill Press Show rolls along. We just touched on the budget deal that Congress has struck, and it looks like it's going to actually approve a 2-year spending bill that gives us some breathing room from the constant talk of shutdown and government default. Here's how outgoing Speaker John Boehner characterized the deal.
Having listened to our members and listened to the American people, we have a budget agreement.
There he is.
I made it clear a month ago when I announced that I was leaving that I wanted to do my best to clean the barn. I didn't want him to walk into a dirty barn full of you know what.
Oh,
so
no.
I've done my best to try to clean it up.
Barn's really clean now for Mr. Paul Ryan, the presumed speaker, who will be able to apparently just, do whatever he can get done, which doesn't appear to be much of anything because conservatives pounce on this deal right away, saying, A, why was it done in secret? And B, they're, of course, against increasing most of the spending caps. Paul Ryan himself had to come out against it and say that if he were speaker, he would have done everything he could to go through regular congressional order, do this in a transparent manner, distance himself from it. But it looks like that with the help of Democrats, we're gonna be able to pass this thing. We're gonna have 2 years of stability, and the person who benefits this in some ways is the guy who opposes it, Paul Ryan, who's gonna be able to actually move through his agenda and not be super worried and not be bogged down by the debt ceiling, by spending, because John Boehner cleaned the barn. We're back after this.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
We're just 11 hours away from the third Republican presidential debate on CNBC. Who's pumped? Who's ready to go? Who's excited? Me a little bit. Just a little itsy bitsy, tiny bit. You know, I want to hear a real great conversation about the economy, about policy, about what they would actually do, about whether or not Ben Carson knows what the debt ceiling is. I'm excited.
I'm sorry, have you seen any of the Republican debates?
But this could be good. This could be about policy. These are CNBC folks who know about the economy and the budget and the debt.
If wishes were fishes, man.
It could be good. I mean,
could be good.
I'll be back here tomorrow, and if it's not, and if it's all about, you know, the Carly Fiorina's one-liners and Ben Carson's being at Popeye's organization and not, you know, and telling them to go shoot at the other guy, if it's all about that kind of thing, I will eat my hat or something.
Just no
You
drinking
can hold
games.
Me, you can
no
hold
drinking
me.
games this time.
Debate 1 and 2, it got dangerous.
Yeah, the drinking games were bad.
Yeah.
Those were
I
bad
mean,
ideas.
I can't do it because I'm going to be here tomorrow, again, filling in for Bill, and I feel like it's not going to be pretty, me at 5 a.m. after like a serious drinking game.
I'm sorry, have we met? This is what,
wow.
This
Oh,
is,
what are you Oh, Peter.
I'm just saying Jamie and I are able to pull this off. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying it can be done.
By the way, I'm Igor Volsky. Have I said that? Of Think Progress, filling in for Bill Press on this Wednesday, October 28th, 2015. Thank you so much for being with us on Free Speech TV, on TawkrTV, on YouTube.com/TawkrTV, and on your favorite progressive radio station. We're here, of course, with the entire Bill Press team, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson, who are going to be drinking a lot later tonight, apparently, in preparation for the debate. Maybe. Who knows? Ray Rogers screening your calls, and Cyprian Bolding making us look oh so very good on the video camera. But joining us now in studio, I'm very happy to announce, is Congressman Tim Ryan, the 13th District of Ohio. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Great to be
I think
with
it's
you.
the first time you and I have done this together.
Yes,
so
yes. Very optimistic this morning.
I am very optimistic.
Right.
I'm very, you know what? I'm very optimistic, as should you be, because you're a big supporter of Hillary Clinton. She's having a great moment right now in the campaign. And here she is last night on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert laughing it up.
Who would you rather run against, Donald Trump or Ben Carson?
I'm going to leave that to the Republicans. You think?
It's a likely choice. Those two guys. But you can picture either one of them in the office, right? You can picture either one of those guys in the office.
Well, I can picture them in some office.
I can picture them in a cubicle. Yeah. I'll go further. They don't get an office. They just get maybe an open work plan office space. That's what they deserve. But Congressman, let me ask you, who do you think will be the GOP nominee that your party is going to have to run against?
You know, it's hard to tell right now. It's so fluid, and it's going to be interesting to figure out. I actually don't think it would be Trump or Carson. I'm not sure. But what's interesting is how the polling is saying a lot more Republicans are saying that they can see themselves voting for Donald Trump. So I think that gives him, everyone says he has a ceiling. I think it says that he has, if he sticks to it, if he doesn't panic right now, because he's still up in all the polls in the other states, but he's panicking because he's Donald Trump. Oh, my God. I'm a loser.
I hate being in second place. You know, I've said for a while now that it doesn't surprise me that people like Ben Carson or Donald Trump or Carly Fiorina for a brief second in the sun there are topping this field, because look at what the Republican Party has become since 2008. They're an opposition party. They fostered this hate, frankly, against the president. Yeah. And they ran candidates in 2010, I mean, on sheer lies, on death panels, on just Obama taking over, Obama the Nazi, Obama the killer. And when you appeal to that crowd, this is what you get. Yeah. You get Republicans who have actually governed for better or for worse, people like Scott Walker and Rick Perry. They drop out of the race because they can't find any support. And the people you mobilize are the ones who support a guy like Ben Carson, who says a Muslim can't be president and kindergarten teachers should have guns, and I will never raise the debt ceiling. I mean, just crazy, irrational stuff.
Right, and whoever is their nominee has to appeal to that wing of the party. So even if Trump drops out, someone better talk kind of the way he's talking to appeal to his voters. And I think you saw Marco Rubio in one of the last debates talk about his position on women's rights. He took the extreme position, which was, I thought, very damaging for him. And they went on to actually really clear the record and say, no, not even exceptions for rape and incest.
Yeah, this is abortion.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Those are the kind of things you're going to see from whoever emerges as the candidate, because they have to appeal to that wing, either to energize the base, to capture those voters. That's the dangerous part. And you said they're an opposition party. They're an opposition party that just happens to be in charge. I mean, that's really, they act like an opposition party, and I guess they are in some sense to the president, but they're in charge of the House of Representatives. I mean, you can't be an opposition party and have that mentality when you're actually in charge of governing the country.
And if Republicans are moving to the right, some have said that Hillary is moving to the left on issues like the TPP, which she has supported and she's now against, on issues like same-sex marriage, which she was against and is now for. What do you make of that, if anything, Bernie Sanders' presidential run has really pushed Hillary to the left on a lot of these issues, thus not giving him any space to run against her?
Well, I would say a lot of people evolved on the issue of marriage. Her public life is how many decades? So, of course, you're going to have positions that evolve along the way. But TPP, from the very beginning, she was for the idea, the structure, but then she had, as she said, very high standards that she's not seeing being met in this. So we're all for trade. I mean, it's not like you can shut down our commerce with other countries. So she was for the framework, but as the details came out, 'cause if you look at her Senate record, she's been for trade agreements, she's been against them. So I think she's the kind of thoughtful person that evaluates these things issue by issue.
It's hard, I think, for people to believe that after having promoted the trade agreement as Secretary of State, after writing about how great it's going to be for the economy in her book, after employing many of the same advisors who then went on to finalize the TPP deal, it's hard, I think, for a lot of progressives to believe, and for a lot of maybe Bernie Sanders supporters to believe, that really, in her hearts of hearts, she really opposes the TPP. It almost seems like she's a politician. She's acting like a politician. The Democratic Party or the base of the Democratic Party is against the TPP, so she has to be against the TPP.
Well, I think what we saw in the Benghazi hearing was someone that is very thorough, very knowledgeable, someone who digs in and prepares and really understands issues. And I think that's something that you want in a president. So to be for the general framework, but then say, where's the currency manipulation in here? That's a huge issue for manufacturers in Ohio. For her to say, I'm not seeing the level of enforcement, the teeth in the law for currency manipulation in this agreement. Shouldn't be a side agreement, should be in the main text of the agreement. For her to say that, I think shows her thoughtfulness. And while we're in the political spin cycles every single day here, and it's a gotcha, look at her flip-flop, and I understand how that happens, but don't you want someone who looks at these things and goes through the text of them and says, yeah, I'm generally for trade. I'm generally for trade with Vietnam and some of these, Japan, these other countries. But this agreement's not meeting up to the standard I have, and if I'm president, I would have much higher standards.
The argument, though, that you hear from the other side, from people like Bernie Sanders and others in Congress who've opposed the TPP from the very beginning is, well, where have you been? We've been making the argument about currency manipulation from the very beginning, about these tribunals from the very beginning, about some of the environmental labor problems from the very beginning. It's great that we finally convinced you, I guess, on this issue, but why has it taken you this long? And I guess the concern is that when you're actually governing, is it going to take A, pressure, and B, this long road to finally evolve to this right position? Why didn't you see it from the very beginning?
Well, first and foremost, she was working for the President of the United States, so we all have bosses. Mine is my wife.
There you go. Very good.
So I am very careful before I state a position that's going to go contrary to hers, especially if I'm going to do it in public.
So she's against the TPP, I see.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right. I'm with my wife on this one.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously she's Secretary of State. She's charged with, helping the president move his agenda, as she, I think, did very, very well. So, to break from that, I think takes some time. And again, we don't know the exact text, but we started to see it move. And, as I said, she's thoughtful. I think she's clearly decisive. She's thorough. And I think these are all good things. And so for her to change her position, or at least state fully her independent position from the president, I think is fine. And I think she's going to make an amazing president. I should bring up the Benghazi because I think it's so indicative of who she is. But to see her depth of knowledge on issues and breadth of knowledge on issues, That's what she brings to bear for us. Don't you want someone like that advocating on behalf of average people in the United States? I mean, I want Tom Brady. You know what I mean? I want Aaron Rodgers. I don't want the backup quarterback from a 1AA school, who happens.
Hear that, Bernie?
Who happens to be, and to a lot of camps, she's just so superior. And I think that's what you want. So for her to take time on these issues I'm fine with it. There was no real pressing need for her to come out immediately.
Let me ask you about some of the, I guess, latest back and forth between Hillary and Bernie.
Oh, aren't these primaries so fun?
Yeah, isn't this fun? You'll
this
remember.
Is like an internal congressional leadership race. It's like, oh, no.
You'll remember that during the Democratic debate, in a heated moment about gun safety, where Hillary pointed out that she has had a very strong record on ensuring sensible gun safety laws, and Bernie has not, one of his vulnerabilities with the progressive base, he responded to her by saying, well, you can shout about it as loud as you want. Nothing's going to change. And for Peter and I were discussing this earlier, it kind of struck us as a little off to say to a woman, you have to stop shouting, given the history of that. And the Saturday, she brought that up and said that for a lot of people, women talking is women shouting. And it's been interpreted by a lot of folks as Hillary accusing Bernie of sexism. And then, of course, the Bernie supporters are out there saying, are you crazy? Look at his record. A, he shouts. B, he says everyone shouts. So, this is, there's nothing here. How do you see this? Do you feel like Hillary here is going after Bernie, and in return, Bernie is now sharpening his attacks and distinctions with Hillary? Are we having a real catfight here?
Well, I think...
Or a fight. Edit. Fight.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's early.
Oh, well, Bernie.
I'm not running for office. Oh, wow.
You got to be careful, I think. And I think that's part of the process here is you've got to be careful the way you address issues.
Yeah.
And you've got to be sensitive to a very diverse population, talking about a lot of different issues. And so I think there is a sensitivity there that Bernie did not show. Now, is it a major issue? Clearly, he's got a great record on women's issues, so I don't see it as a huge thing. But it is something that emerges during the course of this campaign, and these campaigns sharpen you to be more careful, more present, more really disciplined on how you do that. And I think Hillary made the point, and we're all moving on.
I think it's absolutely fair to bring up. I do think it's fair to bring up. And what we were saying earlier is you could point to Bernie Sanders and his history of being right on the issues for women, but it's not a bad thing for you to get checked every now and then and have someone let you know that's not the best thing
Even though
to do.
you've been saying it for a long time.
Even though you're great and you understand and you're on the right side of the issues, you can still slip up and say things that you really shouldn't say. And it's okay for someone to tell you that.
And it reads very differently when you say it to Martin O'Malley than when you say it to Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Congressman Tim Ryan from the 13th District of Ohio is here with us, taking all the heat in this Democratic primary. He's on Twitter at Rep. Tim Ryan. Give him a follow. We'll be right back with him after this.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, the Bill Press Show continues with Congressman Tim Ryan, Democrat from Ohio, as we dissect this Democratic primary we have on our hands. Peter.
All right, I know this is going to be a touchy subject, Congressman, but Cavaliers lost last night. Cavaliers lost to Chicago.
Oh, boy.
Out of Cleveland. LeBron James could not deliver the home win, or the win in Chicago. President Obama was there rooting for Chicago.
I heard, yeah.
But LeBron James couldn't deliver. How worried are you about that loss?
Well, I think you can tell that the president doesn't have to run for re-election.
Oh.
Cheering against the Ohio team
Oh,
is
right.
not good
Wow.
politics, Mr.
This
President.
is really distancing himself.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
That is a
I
good
mean,
point.
you know, this gets personal. It gets
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Do you speak for the Hillary campaign when you say that?
Yes, Hillary is for the Cleveland
Yes,
Cavaliers
yes.
and the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Okay, and the Toledo Rockets, the Bowling Green
Wow.
Falcons.
We're
How you want to
breaking
keep going?
news. We're breaking news. Tweet this out.
Oh,
Big
she's
Ohio
huge
sports
for Ohio State.
Have you gotten over the heartbreak of last season?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many injuries.
It was bad.
You know, it was
bad.
clear like it wasn't going to happen. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like this moment where they got beat and Kyrie Irving was just phenomenal and then he just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, we kind of it was like we brought in hospice. You know,
Yeah.
it was like this slow unwinding of the season. But hopefully we can do it again this year.
All right, get after it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you again about Hillary, not her sports love, but do you feel like, you know, we alluded to this in the last segment, that the benefit of having Bernie Sanders in this race isn't necessarily that he's going to be the nominee, but that he's kind of keeping her accountable to progressive positions. Do you think he's doing that?
I think the whole debate is, you know, I think it's allowing her to...
The races.
The races and the discussion and debate that she's having with Bernie right now, I think is good because it's allowing her to reveal her own bona fides with the liberals. I mean, because now she has to go back and talk about, from law school, I was, you know, going to Georgia and southern states to make sure that on and on and on about, you know, the law center and the first person to start a law clinic in Arkansas. I I mean, she's now able to tell that story. And I think at the end that's going to end up being very beneficial for her because most people didn't know that. They know what they've seen on TV and right wing and all the rest of the Republican candidates beating her up, and she gets a chance to reveal all that.
It's the beauty of the democratic process.
Well, you know, a lot of people are against primaries, but sometimes they are good.
Congressman Tim Ryan from the 13th District in Ohio, thank you so much.
Great
so good to visit with you. Yeah. We're back talking about, of course, the GOP primary with Shane Goldmaker. Thank you. From Politico. Stay with us. I'll get his name right, I promise.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow, CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Help keep all the presidential candidates straight with your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yeah, because there's like 15 of them on the Republican side still. How is that possible? The Democrats have one debate and 2 candidates just like dissolve. We've had almost 3 now, and you still have 15 Republican candidates. So crazy. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. Igor Volsky here, filling in for Bill Press. We turn now, of course, to tonight's main event, the CNBC economic debate, and there's no one better here to discuss what we can expect, what we should all be keeping our eye out on, than Shane Goldmacher. He's the senior political reporter for Politico, and he joins me now in studio. Shane, welcome.
Good morning.
You have a great piece up on Politico called Ted Cruz's Plan to Pick Off the Competition. Because in these debates, there's a lot of attention on Trump, on Carson, but there's a whole field out there. And some of these guys, like Ted Cruz, don't have a lot of the buzz today, but they think that as they get closer to voters actually casting ballots, that's where they're going to shine. And Ted Cruz in particular has this plan where he sees himself consolidating evangelical voters and conservative voters and some of the libertarian voters that were so crazy about Rand Paul. What is his strategy, not just through this debate, but through this race of standing out and becoming the nominee?
Now, to be clear, every candidate thinks they have a secret plan to win the nomination.
Except maybe Rick Santorum.
You know, Rick Santorum, I just had a chance to talk to not that long ago. I mean, he really believes he's going to see the same thing happen as last time. His 1% somehow going to bloom, and somehow the dominoes are going to line up. And
All right, let me try that again. Except for Lindsey Graham.
All right, fair.
Yes.
But with Ted Cruz, what's really interesting is that it's not people who are allied with Ted Cruz who are commenting on this plan and noticing it. It's the people who hate him, the Republican establishment that can't stand Ted Cruz, that have been frustrated with how he's come to Capitol Hill and been like a bull in a china closet. And they see what he's doing, which is slowly consolidating the right wing of the Republican Party before the main primaries begin, and say, look, he's the most likely person to emerge as the conservative alternative in this race. So most Republican races have boiled down to, at the end of the day, a more mainstream candidate and a more conservative candidate. And typically the mainstream candidate wins out. This is a great consternation to the conservative activists in the party. They look at John McCain, they look at Mitt Romney, and they say, these guys couldn't get us out to vote. Evangelicals in particular said, we stayed home in November of 2012. That's the reason Barack Obama was reelected. And so Ted Cruz is tapping into that and doing a pretty good job of consolidating their leadership. Now, he hasn't gotten all the voters yet, and a lot of the evangelicals are with Ben Carson. A lot of folks, including the Cruz campaign, look at Carson and say, as the lights get brighter and he's going to have a bright light moment tonight, that voters are going to say, like, that guy's great. I really like him. I really like what he's saying. I like the message he's giving. But you know what? He doesn't look like president. And the people in front of him, Donald Trump, Ben Carson, they don't look like anyone who's been elected president before, really. And so Ted Cruz is thinking he's the next closest thing.
They're not seeing the jump in the polls yet, but they think it's coming as Carson and Trump go away or have stumbles?
Yeah, I mean, I think Carson is more of the stumble and go away. The Cruz campaign for a long time has basically been drafting behind Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They've been the only folks to not say negative things about him. And the hope was that Donald Trump would fade and they would take his voters. Within the Cruz operation, they're less confident that Donald Trump is going away at this point, as most people are. And so they're trying to build a plan around Donald Trump taking voters. But you know what Donald Trump's done? He's scrambled these sort of neat lanes that the Ted Cruz campaign thinks that they've created. Donald Trump is taking from every part of the Republican Party that's angry. So he's taking from folks who are conservative. He's taking from folks who are more moderate. He's even taking folks who are more liberal. There are just people who are frustrated with the system as it is. And so Cruz is more focused just on the people on the right side of the spectrum.
Like, how annoying is this for Ted Cruz? He spent his entire Senate career nourishing that anger, that hatred for Washington and for Obama and for establishment Republicans, like tireless, countless hours, fundraising, television appearances, Tea Party rallies. And in comes in Donald Trump with no political experience at all and takes away his whole shtick.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump's taken away so many people's sticks. I mean, he's taken away Chris Christie's I tell it like it is. Guess what? You know, there is room for somebody from the New York City area who's brash and outspoken, and it's not Chris Christie, right? Chris Christie's base has been taken away from, like, his personality. John Kasich was supposed to be a truth teller. And you're right, for Cruz being the anti-establishment guy, there are 3 people who've taken this from him at one point, right? Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina, and Donald Trump. Basically, just because they've never been elected to office, they have an advantage, which is remarkable, right? That's a huge shift. And there was an Iowa poll by the Des Moines Register just this week, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was roughly 30% of the Republican Party thought it was more of a problem if you had no political experience, and 60% thought it was more of a problem if you did. That the idea of, like, being able to know how the machinery of Washington works and the idea of potentially getting something done is unappealing because they see nothing getting done, so they see the people as basically tainted if you're a part of that machine. And so Cruz, even though he's been in Washington, even though he is a sitting U.S. senator, has had a lot of success railing against it. But yeah, there's no question that Trump has taken that message away. The Cruz campaign's spin, and Cruz's spin himself, I sat down with him last Friday, was pretty clear. It's like Donald Trump has framed this race as who's against Washington. Ultimately, I think I win that race. And I appreciate him framing it that way. That's maybe a little optimistic, but that's his frame.
Ted Cruz's plan to pick off the competition, that's the article we're talking about. Shane, the thing that I was also concerned about here is we saw Donald Trump lead in every poll for 100 days. Yes. Then the slow rise of Ben Carson. Why? Because over the last couple of weeks, Ben Carson has been saying the craziest thing you could think of. Muslims can't be president. Let's arm kindergarten teachers. The list, bin Laden wouldn't have been there if we would have stopped buying oil from Saudi Arabia. I mean, just let's not ever raise the debt ceiling. I mean, things that as a president you would never be able to ever do. Much less, the
Kai Ryssdal interview is pretty
great.
The
Kai Ryssdal interview, yeah, where he was asked multiple times about the debt ceiling and exposed himself as knowing nothing about what the debt ceiling actually is. And I have this theory that the reason why Ben Carson surged is because, like, miraculously, he's been able to find some space to the right of Donald Trump and to the both politically and in terms of crazy. He out-Trumped in some way with these remarks and got a lot of attention, got a lot of headlines. Is that also then the Ted Cruz strategy? I mean, it seems like the candidates, at least early on, and that's where we're at, we've got to remember that, the candidates who can come up with the craziest thing, those are the ones who the Republican base suddenly just floods to?
I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I mean, I do think that Ben Carson's been, pretty outspoken about some things that are outlandish in recent weeks. He's been that way throughout most of the campaign. I mean, if one of the first cardinal rules of running for political office or being a political office holder is not to compare things with Nazi Germany, this is something that Ben Carson steps on a semi-regular basis. But that same Iowa poll talks about that the Republican primary electorate right now doesn't see those things as bad things. They don't disagree with him. They don't see these things as outlandish. They see these things as somebody who is basically coming in and promising to rip up what's happening. And the thing about Ben Carson, the difference with Ben Carson versus Trump is that he is so soft-spoken about it. Now, you can read what Ben Carson says and it sounds outlandish, but when you hear him speak, he is so quiet. I mean, he's been accused by Trump of being low energy, which grates on all the candidates when Trump does this. And I said there's a stylistic difference, I think, that is appealing to people who like Trump's message, but maybe have looked at me like, that guy's being a little ridiculous, like hurling insults, calling Rand Paul ugly on national television during the last debate. Maybe that's not the person we want. Maybe we want somebody who looks a little bit more soft-spoken, even if he's saying things that are just as loud.
I guess the other question is, why is it that now in 2016 we're seeing this kind of rhetoric appeal to Republican primary voters? I mean, we've always seen campaign rhetoric, obviously, in 2012 and 2008 and 2004 and 2000, but it's never been this level of, I guess, just crazy. I mean, candidates at least knew what the debt ceiling was. I mean, it wasn't an issue for a lot of these campaigns, but you didn't have candidates talking about Hitler in this way, and if only the Jews had guns, the Holocaust wouldn't happen. What is it now about the Republican electorate? What do you think has changed between then, when we had disagreements on policy, but it didn't stoop to this level of kind of insanity?
Well, I think that the difference is that there are a larger number of voters who feel more strongly about those issues in the Republican Party. Now, I don't know that it's totally new, right? Pat Buchanan tapped into this kind of energy in the 1990s. In the last cycle, Michelle Bachmann was being criticized for sort of all these outlandish statements. It's not new that they're going to say outlandish things. What is new is that there's not one person at the top polls for a little bit after they get some excitement and people are excited about them, like, okay, that person's not really going to be president. You have multiple candidates at the top, Carson and Trump, who've been saying pretty outlandish things, and for a long time. I mean, I Googled yesterday, just out of curiosity, Donald Trump and durability, because I keep reading stories about Donald Trump's surprising durability. It's like 300,000 results, right? Donald Trump and durability, because he's been on top of the polls for so durable. He's going to be great, most tremendous durable. He's been on top of the polls for like 100 days now. So, I think that's the difference. That said, this is the time of year, the summer. Now we're getting later than usual, but the summer before and the early fall, that's when people like to date folks who are, saying something interesting that sort of tap into their inner id and less their inner ego, right? This is the point of the race where Republican political strategists say the race moves towards their inner ego, and that's what Jeb Bush wants. That's what Marco Rubio wants. That's what Jeb Bush's chief strategist, Mike Murphy, keeps telling donors. The race is going to turn. They're going to turn more serious. They're going to turn to people who they think can actually win, beat Hillary Clinton, and be president of the United States.
The interesting thing to me, to look at the comparison of like Bachmann or even Herman Cain, who led the last time around, right, is you've got Trump or Carson, 1 and 2, and it's like 26 points, 22 points, and then the drop-off is so steep, right? We go straight to single digits after that. So there's so much ground to make up. It's going to be interesting to see, like, how that all plays out, because someone's going to make some really big moves.
Yeah, we're going to figure out what candidates who have those single digits have to do in tonight's debate with Shane Goldmacher, senior political reporter for Politico, when we come back after this.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yeah, that's how you spell Talker. 49 minutes after the hour, Igor Volsky filling in for Bill Press. We continue with Shane Goldmacher, senior political reporter for Politico. Shane, we're less than 12 hours out from the main debate. What do you expect? What are you going to be watching?
Where's our countdown clock?
I don't know.
It's pretty BS that they don't have that going.
It is a little
They should have that
disappointing.
going all week long.
If, as the dynamics of the race have changed, and now, of course, Trump is very upset about being in second place, Carson's on top in some of the polls. What do you expect from those two, and then from some of the other candidates who are really hoping to pop?
I mean, I expect that those two are going to go after each other a little bit, or at least Trump is going to go after Carson, and we'll see how Carson responds. That will be a focus. I think that it'll be a particular focus because this is a debate about the economy, which is, in concept, a stronger place for Donald Trump, right? This is this is the area he actually has experience in the economy, maybe less so for Ben Carson. The person I'm most interested in watching, I think most people who follow the race are most interested in watching tonight, is Jeb Bush, who really is in need of having a good night. He had staff cutbacks, cut his payroll by 40% last week. This is the guy who's supposed to be the financial juggernaut. 40% payroll cutbacks. There are donors who are skittish about his campaign. His campaign is empowered by the political class and the donor class. It has not been powered by activists. As I've traveled across the country, it is hard to find an excited Jeb Bush Republican primary voter who's not sort of involved in his campaign or involved in the political establishment, just a regular person at a coffee shop. They're harder to find than activists in favor of other candidates. And so if his base is the elite and the power class, and they're concerned about him, he really, really needs to reassure them tonight, before things get any worse. I do think that this debate might have a little less high stakes. Everyone says this is the highest stakes debate yet. I actually think this is probably the lowest stakes debate yet because there's another one in 2 weeks. The one in September, there's a 6-week window afterwards in which people could drown in bad news or disappear from the stage. 2 weeks later, they're going to have a chance to do this again. But the last candidate, like Jeb Bush, who came into a debate needing to have a big performance to reassure his donors, dropped out right afterwards. That was Scott Walker. He had to have a good night. He talked the least in Simi Valley, and a week later he was gone. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to Jeb Bush.
It's a lot of a lot more money that Jeb Bush has.
A lot more money. Jeb Bush has a super PAC with $100 million, but Scott Walker walked out with a super PAC with about 20. So that's a lot of money too. I'm not saying that that's going to happen or even that that's in the offing. I'm just saying that these are high stakes moments for campaigns, especially campaigns that need a course correction.
By the way, Richard T. from our chat here says it's 9 hours and 9 minutes until the debate. So there you go.
That's why you
there's
need your
your
countdown
time.
clock.
There's your countdown clock. But just very quickly, when it comes to the undercard debate,
I mean, is he counting that one, or are we counting down to Lindsey Graham?
I think he is. Well, yes. What's the point of Lindsey Graham and Pataki and who else is there at the undercard
Bobby
debate?
Jindal.
Of course, I'm sorry, Bobby Jindal. What's the point? I mean, Fiorina had her moment and went up to the main debate, and for maybe 2 weeks was a thing, and then fizzled out. Should we even have this undercard debate? I mean, or should the cutoff just be higher for the main debate? And if you don't make it, you don't make it.
It's really hard for these candidates to get any traction from a debate of other folks who nobody's paying attention to. I will say, though, lots of people are watching.
Which is surprising.
Yeah, the number of people who watch the regular debates in the previous cycle for the Republican Party is about the number who are watching this undercard. I mean, the highest rated Obama-Clinton debate in the 2008 cycle was somewhere around 10 million people watched that. This was like the peak of excitement, right? These are two heavyweights battling for the nomination deep into the calendar. I mean, people were really interested in this race, right? That about 10 million people watch it. Like 6 million people watched Lindsey Graham and Bobby Jindal fight last time. I mean, this is like a fascinating dynamic. So for these candidates, this is still a huge audience, bigger than you might normally have in a primary debate on a main stage.
A huge audience.
Huge. And so, but are they popping from doing well? No. I mean, you know, conservative activists thought that Bobby Jindal did a pretty good job of the last undercard debate, sort of tapped into their issues. Lindsey Graham had the best performance.
I thought he did too. I was surprised he didn't see a bounce.
Yeah, he was fun. He was witty. I mean, this is the Lindsey Graham that you know from the hallways of the Senate. The Lindsey Graham who last night in Boulder was pouring shots at a bar with Anna Bash.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the you know, a loose Lindsey Graham who's in there to have fun. You know, with a bank shot 2 times off the wall, knocked 2 balls into the corner to win the presidency. He's out there just for the billiards game, right?
He should just bring a bottle to the undercard debate tonight to follow up on his drinking. We're going to drink more.
We're going to drink some more.
Shane Goldmacher, senior political reporter for Politico. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll all be watching both debates. And we'll be here tomorrow to tell you all about it. We'll be right back. The Bill Press Show continues.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
The final moments of the Bill Press Show for this Wednesday, October 28th, debate day in America. The question we've posed to some of our political reporters is, what do the non-Trump, non-Carson candidates have to do to actually shine, to stand out? And I submit to you that the trick is in the questions. If you ask substantive questions about economic policy, people like Trump, like Carson, won't know what to say. And that's where Jeb and maybe Rubio and maybe Cruz can actually shine and can actually increase. We'll see if that happens when I'm back here tomorrow to dissect it all. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Igor
This
Volsky. Bye-bye.
is the Bill Press Show.